There we go. Episode 9. We now have new NBA players. It's a big week in the world. We are going to talk about your Miami Heat. We're
Oh
obviously
man.
obviously we're going to have to talk about my Houston Rockets.
Oh yeah. We do have to talk about your Rockets, man.
Some would say it was an
Said the,
okay day. Some would say it was an
no,
okay
some
day.
some say y'all won the draft, man. Some would say that, Mars. But we'll get into that if y'all really won this draft. We'll
Yeah, we're
see.
for sure going to get into it. We got a lot to talk about actually when it comes to the draft. A
Oh,
lot
a
of
lot,
trades
yeah.
happened. A
Oh, that's
lot.
true. We do got one big trade that happened that we didn't, that we didn't get to talk about.
Yeah, but no one's really covered it. So I mean, we get to talk about that too. But I do think the best place to start, I mean, is probably with the number 1 pick. And I don't know how long we're going to talk about this guy, because we could talk about him for a whole show, to be honest. But I want to ask you for your opinion on the number 1 pick, Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, we all knew from maybe 2020 that this guy was going to go number 1 in this draft class.
They did.
San Antonio picked him up. They had the easiest pick maybe in NBA history. But what's your opinion on Victor Wembanyama, the player now, going forward, how it looks for San Antonio? This might be one of the only times that a podcast is going to talk about San Antonio. So let's give them
sir.
the
Come
minutes
on,
they
man. Give our
deserve.
credit. Number one, obviously we know the hype, right? We're talking about, the guy was getting hyped up as, oh, he was the best prospect since LeBron, right? But is that true when you turn on the film? It depends, because I wasn't watching LeBron as a prospect, so unfortunately, I can't gauge that. But when I watch Victor's game, I'll be honest with you, Mars, I understand why he has hype. Because number one, if we go down just the checklist, we're talking about a 7'4" guy with a smooth game, like his ability to like combine that size with such great ball skills, like it's just insane. And like he's just a coach nightmare. And what I mean by a coach nightmare, like how do you even game plan for a 7'4" guy that can put the ball on the floor? He's great in the post, could shoot the ball. He's just, and he could pass. Mars, I don't know if you know that he's actually a pretty like nice passer, especially when I was going through the film. I think he's a pretty nice passer, and he has a lot of defensive upside too. Obviously, because he's 7'4" with I believe an 8-foot wingspan. I didn't fact check that. Maybe you can check that for me. But
They said on draft night he had an 8-foot wingspan, which I
that's what.
believe is like the largest
Yeah,
wingspan measured or something.
I mean he's already the tall. Yeah, I think he's the tallest player measured. Like if you measured him, he's the tallest player in NBA history too. So like, oh no, not tallest player in NBA history, but
he was 6th tallest in NBA history, and I think he
yes.
measured him with the longest wingspan.
Yes, because I just
That's
remembered
something
Manu
crazy.
Bol, but he's up there in terms of height. So I understand the height. He has an insane frame, the athleticism. I get the people being a little bit concerned about the strength, but at the same time, he's so weird because like that frame, I don't see him really getting bullied like that. Obviously, maybe when he guards Joel Embiid or guards Nikola Jokic, but like I don't really see him getting bullied like that. And I think I'm already seeing off-season videos of him trying to add on strength. So that already shows you he's committed. And if we go by the track record of the San Antonio Spurs number 1 picks, I mean we got David Robinson, Tim Duncan. Victor might be that next guy, man. He might be. I think it's justified him being. If he didn't go number 1, it would have been the greatest travesty in NBA like draft history, bro. Like I don't think it comes close.
100%. I mean, everyone knew he was going number 1. This draft was everyone battling for the number 1 pick. Whoever got it, we knew who they were taking, and then it was who's going to go.
I'm happy he went to the Spurs too, because we already know about their franchise history. So yeah. Yeah. Hey, you want him to go to Houston, bro? You can't get everybody, bro. You got Jalen
following the footsteps of Hakeem. I mean, it was right there.
That's the hype you would do it.
It was right there. Yao Ming, the other 7'5" guy. I mean, it was right there. But
yeah,
I mean, objectively, yes, San Antonio is probably the best development program you could have gone to. The history of that franchise. I mean, Some would say the greatest coach in NBA history is there. I mean,
Mm.
the all-time greats are still involved in the franchise, so he's still going to get that tutelage from David Robinson, Tim Duncan, those type of guys. I mean, I think I saw somewhere that he went and had dinner with them already or something. So
He did. Manu Ginobili was there. That's your guy.
yeah, I think Sean Elliott. I think Sean Elliott was there.
Elliott was there. David Robinson, Duncan.
San Antonio are trying to give this guy everything he needs to pan out. And me personally, I want to say this. This is real hoop talk, no troll. When we knew about wembanyama, I actually went back and watched some LeBron James high school film.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, just so I could get a grasp of what we're comparing him to. I don't think he's as good as LeBron was.
Oh man, I wanted you to jump on that shit. You think he's a better prospect?
What I will say is, obviously, it's hard to just say, "Oh, well, this guy's ceiling, blah blah blah," because we know what LeBron.
We know what LeBron turned out.
Arguably the greatest player of all time. At worst, top 10. I'm not trying to have anyone argue with me. At worst, he's a top 10 player to ever exist. So it's hard to say wembanyama's ceiling is higher than that. But I will say, if everything goes to plan and everything they say about wembanyama comes true, the jump shot comes along, the shot creation, the defense, the ability to handle the ball, all of that goes to the max potential it has. I think his ceiling is the highest of any player I've ever seen.
Ever, bro.
Now, a ceiling does not mean that's what a player is going to reach. It doesn't mean this is what they are going to do at the minimum. But the ceiling of what he can feasibly achieve, I think, is the highest of any player I've watched. Now, that might be a hot take. Who cares? That's my opinion. But I do want to say, I do think right now, I don't think he's at the level that a lot of people seem to believe he is. His jump shot, especially from three, isn't as good as people seem to believe it is, because a lot of highlights might make it seem like he's a great shooter.
It does. No, it does. It does. And I watched his last game, and it's like, I'm seeing him hit these fadeaway one-legged threes. I'm like, no, there's no way he's this nice from three. And of course, I don't like to look at the stats a lot, of course, when you're judging, these prospects coming in. But I do feel like the jump shot is something they, overhyped just a little bit. How much is like, oh my God, he's 7'4" with a jumper. That means he's KD, but 7'4", bro. What are you doing? Like, nah, he's not that. But yeah, he has a little nice J that I feel like can really work in a pick and pop situation with him and Devin Vassell or Trey Jones, that they can, they can have something nice going on over there in San Antonio.
Yeah, I think the best indicator for me, like, I think the jump shot has potential. I don't think he's going to be a terrible shooter. I think the mid-range jump shot, from what I've seen, looks pretty refined. He has a little turnaround jump shot over both shoulders. His post game is actually pretty skilled for a guy that big. You expect him to just go over the top of everyone.
Yeah,
he's pretty refined. But I think the biggest indicator to me, 83% from the free throw line.
Ooh,
that's a sign of someone who has shooting touch. Yeah. And I believe, even though I think he shot like 28% from three on like 6 attempts, I do believe the jump shot has signs of life. Now, I don't think he's going to come into the league shooting 38% from three on 6 attempts. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's probably going to be around 32% on maybe 5 attempts, which isn't great, but for a guy that size, it's respectable. And then the progress will be from there. I think his biggest impact from day one will be defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Greg Popovich, one of the greatest defensive minds we've ever seen in San Antonio, with that size, that mobility, and the way the game's going, he has the potential to be an all-defensive candidate from day one. That's where I think what makes him such a special prospect.
He's so weird because I still have this one play, and I had to tweet it out. Like, he was in drop coverage. The guy's coming off the screen, and like the guy's already like in his peak shot, and like somehow Victor like jumps up and still blocks it in midair. Like, that was so crazy to me. I'm like, bro, like if he's doing that, and he talked about that. One of the things he wants to do in the NBA is he wants that jump shot block. He's gonna get it, obviously, probably by game 5, bro, because that length is absolutely insane. Like, you're 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan, bro. Like, you're basically just barely jumping in and dunking it, bro. Like, that is.
Yeah, I saw a clip where he just put his arm is at the rim.
It's like, bro, like. I really do hope he pans out, man. I do.
I hope so too. I mean, I want to put it out there. there's no prospect in this class I'm hoping to fail. I don't want any prospect to fail. I want everyone to have a good
So
career.
yeah, thank you. Actually, thank you
I
for
don't
saying
prey
that.
on anyone's downfall.
Yes, we have
If I think a prospect isn't great, it's not because I want them to be bad.
Yes,
I'm giving my objective opinion. If I'm wrong, that's perfectly fine because I want these prospects to be great. I don't want anyone to fail.
We have no personal vendetta. So if I go and I don't think this player is going to turn out that good. It's not like I hate that player. It's just I don't think he's personally going to pan out. And spoiler alert: the next guy we're going to talk about, where me and Mars will go into, that might spark some things up, man. It might spark some things up.
I mean, yeah, that could be a little bit of a spoiler. So I guess we can actually segue into the next pick. The Charlotte Hornets took Brandon Miller out of Alabama at number 2. I've given my opinion on him a few times. So before I do that again, I want to ask you, Dream. You did allude to it there. What do you think about Brandon Miller?
This is great because I 1000% have never heard Mars' opinion on Brandon Miller, so I won't be swayed. So I don't want anybody, potentially thinking that. But me personally, Mars, I thought it was a travesty that he was picked over Scoot Henderson. I just thought it was like, and then I was joking with my friends. I was like, you know what? It would be the most Charlotte thing to all year. It's projected that it's going to be Victor 1, Scoot 2, and they won't pick Scoot 2. It is the most Charlotte thing in the world, and that's what they did. They drafted Brandon Miller, and again, Brandon Miller is a really good player. We're talking about a really good shot maker who's developing some shot creation chops. He's pretty good inside the arc. He can handle in certain sides of the court. Like, I get the comparison about Paul George. At the same time, I don't get it because I feel like the way Paul George can navigate, I'm about to use this new word I've been learning, the East and West, how he can navigate his East and West with his ball handle, I think is I just feel like Paul George out the gate was supremely better than Brandon Miller at that. But that's a different topic for another day. Of course, he can shoot. He's a pretty nice shooter. It was 38% from 3 in his time in college, but in Alabama. But I don't see him becoming – I just don't see how he can be above Scoot, who I think has legitimate all-star, all-NBA potential for years, just the way he is. I just didn't see that in Brandon Miller in the tape. Maybe he can prove me wrong because he does have a nasty jump shot with a great step back. His defensive upside, that's also something I don't really see outside of passing lanes, just because he has some great length and has a great frame. But again, Brandon Miller, I think I'm hoping, I turn out to be wrong in my evaluation of him. He turns out to just somehow learn this offseason or during summer camp. We just see him, not summer camp, but, summer league, turns out to go crazy. But hopefully I'm wrong. But I don't think he's going to be that crazy of a player, in my opinion. But
I mean, yeah, it's well documented, my opinion on Brandon Miller.
What is your opinion on Brandon Miller?
I will say I'm with you. I do think Scoot Henderson should have gone number 2. I do think he was the better prospect. Before we get into Scoot Henderson, when it comes to Brandon Miller, I do see the flashes of shot creation, even though I do think his ability to create separation is a bit suspect when it comes from a consistency standpoint. I'm also not very high on his ability to get to the rim and finish consistently. I do think there was instances where he would blow some more easy finishes, or he wouldn't be able to play through contact as well as you'd like for a guy with that size and frame. The mid-range creation leaves a lot to be desired. I do think he has a good 3-point shot, although I am a bit concerned about his ability to get it off due to the fact that it's kind of a set shot with a low release point, which is a bit weird for a guy of his size. You'd expect him to release a bit higher. I don't want to say Trae Young vibes, but slightly that he releases it kind of low, which is kind of interesting to me. But I do like his ability to rebound, grab and go, push the tempo. There's signs of playmaking that I do like as well. I do think he was actually a pretty solid passer, which is something that seems to get slept on a lot. I do think he's actually pretty good in that role. Defensively, I'm not too high on him. I do, like you said, I do think there's potential in the lanes. I do think he has that I don't really buy his ability to be a point of attack defender or someone who's really going to be someone who you put on ball to stop someone. But I do think in a team construct, he can be a solid defender, which is maybe all Charlotte are looking for. I don't really know. But I'm not too high on the upside of Brandon Miller. I see maybe nothing wrong, but I do see a high level role player with Brandon Miller, not anyone who's
and
really
that's not
nothing
bad.
wrong with being a role
Yeah.
player in the NBA. That's how you get a long
Yeah.
career, 10 plus years, make a lot of money, maybe even have some team success. I just don't see the upside over the guy who got drafted number 3.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not as high on him at number 2. But now that we've spoke about Brandon Miller, I do think now would be a great time to talk about the guy who did go number 3, and that is Scoot Henderson, who you seem to be quite high on. So,
I
Dream,
am.
tell me a little bit about Scoot
I like
Henderson.
Scoot, and the reason why I really like Scoot is, and obviously the first thing is the athleticism that pops out when you're watching the tape of him. His ability to just get to the rim and just get downhill with that first step. But what really surprised me more is because me, I wasn't watching. First of all, I wasn't watching college ball, and I damn sure wasn't going to watch no G League Ignite ball. All right, it's just how I am. I'm not watching that. I don't have the time for it. But he has some strength, man. I mean, he's 6'2", 190, 195, and he has some strength. Like he can bull those guys going to the rim. He has some great pick and roll chops as well. And the defensive upside, and I'm talking about his defensive upside, like, again, people might say, oh, he's only 6'2", but I feel like those defensive instincts he has, right? His ability to rotate, his ability to play at the point of attack. These are things that, with more reps and playing in the NBA game speed, these are things that once he can get adjusted to, we can see Scoot Henderson being a very, very solid defender. And we're already hearing him, practicing with Steph on his jump shot. If you go and look at him in the G League Ignite, that was one of his scoring counters, was being able to shoot those deep mid-range jump shots. Now, if he starts pushing that back just a little bit to the 3-point line and start knocking those down, I think it can get really scary. And this is not even me bringing up his playmaking skills, because he can be a really, really dangerous, slashing playmaker. Just his ability to always get downhill, hit guys off a roll, hit guys in the corner, hit guys in the dunker spot. So I'm really high on Scoot. I'm not as high as, how Low was the other day when he was on the pod, but I am pretty high on Scoot, man. I think Scoot's going to be really, really nice. Hopefully, the Trailblazers are a smart franchise. They're a smart franchise, and they get rid of Dame. I said it's not going to happen, but I was under the impression Brandon Miller was on their team. So I don't know. If they actually play Scoot off the bench, Portland, y'all got it. Y'all got it, bro. Y'all got it. You got it. Of course, the injury concerns are there too.
I mean, there's all our projections of players are going to be permitting health. I mean, Wembanyama is an injury risk, just being that size. Scoot's an injury risk, being that athletic. Like, sure, there are health concerns, but permitting health, I think that's what Dream's talking about. That's what I'm talking about with these prospects. But to piggyback off what you said about Scoot, I'd say I'm relatively high on Scoot. I did have him as the number 2 prospect in the class, although I did know Charlotte weren't going to take him because it's Charlotte. But I do think the jump shot is a longer way away than I think a lot of people seem to not give credit to. But I do think the jump shot is not day one ready, even from mid-range. I don't think it's great. I do think he has solid touch on some floaters, which is sign for potential. He's an okay free throw shooter, which is, again, sign for potential, but 27% from 3 wasn't a great mid-range shooter. Pretty much all his scoring is going to come downhill or in transition, which is okay for a start point. But I do think if he wants to reach his potential, the jump shot is going to have to come along. His playmaking is actually very strong, getting downhill, finding cutters, his ability to read defense. He's actually pretty poised with the ball, which is something that I think he doesn't get enough credit for. But I think the one area of his game that I do think is slept on the most is his ability to play without the ball. It's very rare that there's a small guard who can't shoot, who's comfortable without the basketball. Scoot Henderson has a good feel for cuts, has a good feel for moving without the basketball, and making sure that he can be a threat without the ball, which is something that not many non-shooters are really great at, which is something I think Scoot has a good early feel for. Now, I do think there are some instances where he does have to clean up. Sometimes he can be a bit reckless with his decision making, even though I do think he's overall quite poised, especially for a player who can play with that kind of tempo. The jump shot is obviously the biggest swing factor for him. Defensively, there's upside there, but his motor's sometimes questionable. Sometimes his awareness is all over the place. So Scoot Henderson, from an upside standpoint, I do believe is the second best prospect in this class. Maybe third. We might get into the one who I might think is higher, but maybe second or third. But from a right now standpoint, I do think there are quite a few holes in his game, especially at the lead guard position, where maybe under Damian Lillard's tutelage, because I don't think Portland's going to get rid of him, maybe he can develop faster than people expected. So I do want to say Scoot Henderson would have been my number 2 pick, but him falling in a situation with Portland next to Damian Lillard, who is one of the premier point guards in the game, one of the premier shooters in the game. I mean, if you want someone to mentor you, I mean, we've seen what Dame's done for Anthony Simons, who I'm not saying Anthony Simons wasn't great anyway, but you can see how he's taken parts of Dame's game and adding it to his own and starting to become a very good player. So I do think Scoot Henderson can have a similar trajectory to that. But that is the first 3 picks. Now we might get a little bit biased. So before we do that, let me read some super chats.
He said we, yeah.
I might get a team. So we're gonna read some super chats before we do that. Marion Brown said, "Been watching PC for a year now. Salute Mars. Appreciate you, Marion Brown." Ethan, the depressed Cavs fan, said, "Should I be even more depressed now since my team drafted Emoni Bates?" We can talk a little bit about Emoni Bates since
wasn't he second round?
He went number 49, so I guess we can talk a little bit about Emoni Bates because we're not really going to get that far down the draft to discuss him later on. So I want to ask you, how comfortable are you with your knowledge of Emoni Bates? Do you think he's a good pick? Do you think he's a bad pick? What do you think it's going to look like for Emoni in Cleveland?
I'll be honest with you, my knowledge of Emoni Bates is not that strong, mainly because I didn't really watch him in Eastern Michigan this year. I remember watching the 18-year-old kid in Memphis struggling a lot. So my opinion of him is not strong, but if he can still keep, because he still had a pretty smooth game, and I'm using smooth and instead of just saying the aesthetically pleasing level, how he can play. But if he can still shoot, it's that thing is he's so skinny too. Like let me search him.
I believe he's listed at 6'9", 190.
190. Okay. For some reason, I thought he was lower than that just because it's frame. But
he might be. Last I saw, I believe that's what he was listed at. It could be lower, but I'm pretty sure it's 6'9", 190.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's 190. So, unfortunately, I mean, getting him in the second round, I get it because this was a guy. If people forgot, like he's being projected as like a top 5 pick before he played in Memphis. Like before he played in Memphis, he was being projected as being a top 5 pick. But after what he was doing in Memphis, and then you had all those stuff happening off the court, now you find himself falling all the way out of the first round. So I get it why the Cavs will do it. For me personally, and of course this is jumping early, but if I was the Cavs, I would have found a way to try to trade up early to try to get Cam Whitmore. That's me personally.
No.
You see? But if I was the Cavs, Cam Whitmore is a guy that fixes some of the problems that you had in last playoffs. That wing that can drive, that can shoot. Like he's the perfect definition of a drive pass shoot wing. That's what Cam Whitmore can do, and he would have dramatically helped that situation last year. Estimating if turns out to be as good as I think he would be. But if I was them, I would have traded up. I don't see any reason. They had the assets.
Thank you for not being them. Thank you. but we will also get into Cam Whitmore later. Just a little bit on Emoni Bates. I need to say this with as much respect to Emoni Bates.
Oh wow!
I believe Emoni Bates was done dirty by his family. I believe they handled his basketball career terribly. And I do believe he had first-round talent, but they mismanaged him completely. For anyone who isn't fully aware of the Emoni Bates story, little summary. He was in high school. He was doing great. First 2 years, I think he won like a state championship in one of those years, averaging crazy numbers, one of the best scorers. That's why you see all the mixtapes, next Kevin Durant, blah, blah, blah. Then his father decides to become LeVar Ball, make a prep school
He
just
did.
for Amani, just make a prep school just for Amani Bates to go to. The competition in which he's playing against is terrible. There's no structure. It's just Amani Bates.
And then he sends him a year early.
Yeah, it's
to
Amani.
college.
It's Amani Bates just shot tracking. Then he does the same thing with Amani Bates' AAU team. So all of a sudden, Amani Bates goes from relative structure in high school, learning the game of basketball, to it's the Amani Bates show. We're just gonna give you the ball, take as many shots as you want, pop as many numbers as you want, get the highlight mixtapes. Then he decides to go to Memphis a year early, reclassify. He's 17, not tremendously athletic, doesn't really understand team basketball. He enrolls late, so he doesn't even have a preseason with the team. So then he's in Memphis. They're trying to use him as a point guard because he's not really got the size to deal with wings on the college level. He's playing point guard with no ability to play make. Hasn't been taught actually how to run a team's offense, so he looks terrible in Memphis. And then he transfers to Eastern Michigan, which is not a very high level school, not great competition. I don't think they've been in the tournament in like 25 years. He goes there, and then it's pretty much back to the Amani Bates show where he's chucking up as many shots as he wants. All the self-creation, not tremendously efficient. Decision-making is terrible. Doesn't play defense. It's not good. And I will say, I think his role into the NBA is as a shooter off the move, off dribble handoffs, catch and shoot.
So what's a player comp you think is good for him? Like
if he wants to stick in the NBA, I think Duncan Robinson is who he needs to watch.
Wow, Duncan Robinson.
I think he needs to be comfortable shooting off screens, catch and shoot, different type of actions. The self-creation is not going to translate to the NBA. He's not going to have the ball in his hands when he's this bad of a playmaker. Those type of things, it's not going to happen. So if he wants to stay in the league, it has to be from a shooting standpoint. Because defensively, I also see no way for him to become viable either.
Yeah,
so
true.
He needs to just become an elite shooter. And at number 49, if you can get that, that's still great value at the number 49.
Yeah, because for the Cavs, especially, still you needed a shooting, right? That's one of the things that
shooting at the wing position. So
yes,
I do believe that's his way to the league. Amani Bates, if you're watching this, maybe take my advice, maybe not. It doesn't matter. But I do think that's the way for him to contribute in the NBA. I don't think you're going to see this Kevin Durant he was touted to be. That's not going to happen.
He was touted as Kevin Durant, bro.
No team's going to put the ball in his hands enough to allow that to happen. So that is my brief summary of Amani Bates. And no, for everyone who seems to think I hate him, I don't hate him. I just didn't think he was going to go first round, and he didn't. I don't think he's going to be a great NBA player. If he proves me wrong, all power to him. I'm not wishing on anyone's downfall. I'm not hoping anyone doesn't pan out. I'm hoping the best for all.
Yeah, you're trying to lay the groundwork and then kill him.
Yeah, I don't want it to be out there that Mars doesn't want Amani Bates to succeed. I don't wish on anyone's downfall. I just give my objective opinion on these players. And Amani Bates is someone I don't really think has a high upside in the NBA. But enough about the number 49 pick Amani Bates. Let's get into something more back in line. Yeah. Actually, before we do that, let me read this one more super chat. Ethan again, he said, I saw a video that was explaining how when Vic jumps for his jump shot, the ball is like 10 feet, 6 inches in the air. So he's literally shooting downwards.
That makes sense.
I mean, that does make sense when you're that tall, those long limbs, and you're taking a jump shot. Yes, your release point is probably going to be above the basket. Which is why I understand that it's kind of hard to shoot from 3 when you're that tall. I mean, it does make sense. But I do think the shooting touch has potential. So I want to say, I hope wembanyama pans out. I really, really hope he pans out. That would be great NBA entertainment. One more, Talleyrand, HoopTalk as usual. Thank you. We'd love to hear an episode on ones versus twos, discussing the nuances of that dynamic. Team construction would be another. Whatever you decide to talk about, I'll be here regardless. I appreciate you, Talleyrand. That is definitely an interesting discussion that we might get to during this off season because we might be a bit dry for content. So we might. We'll see. But thank you, Talleyrand. But now back to the prospects. I wanna ask you before I give my opinion.
Unbiased opinion.
Amen Thompson going number 4 to Houston. What's your thoughts on Amen Thompson?
Now, I must say, guys, last week I was very, very misinformed, other than Victor and Scoot, on a lot of these prospects. So, when Lowe was telling me about the comp of Amon Thompson, in the OTE elite, obviously I can't refute it because I understand. But I'm sorry, Mars. I was gonna say this earlier, but in terms of talent, we're just talking about talent. I think Amon Thompson's talent, like upside, is better than Brandon Miller, and here's why. Here's why. We're talking about a guy who's an unworldly athlete, and Mars was talking about it like just in terms of like an athlete compared to Scoot. I understand it because like his explosiveness and him being able to like pair that up with like such a creative handle is actually kind of insane because he created tons of advantages for his teammates, especially a guy named Eli who was the shooter for their team. He was just getting a bunch of catch and shoot looks because of Amon Thompson's ability to get downhill, and he's just ridiculous, man. Like his ability to just always creatively either be from the pick and roll or when it's in a fast break situation, just zip down the court and be able to make the right decision on point all the time. Because we talk about it, I feel like for you to be a really good playmaker, especially in the NBA, your decision making has to first be on point and it has to be fast, right? It can't be slow because then just those few little seconds that you're slow, it's a turnover or the ball's going out of bounds or you threw it too hard and the guy couldn't catch it. So those are things that I feel like Thompson, especially you put him next to Jalen Green in the Houston Rockets. You still got KJ Martin too. Those guys can really run the floor, and with his ability to leap off the floor and his ability to just get down the court that quick, I think is going to be crazy. And of course, I don't think he has a defensive upside like his other brother, but he has all the talent too. Right? He has the length. He has I do believe he has the footwork. I do believe he has the foot speed. And I do believe he has the size to be able to be a legit two-way guy in this NBA. And I really do believe, Mars, that I think Houston was actually a great situation for him. Even though, unlike you, I'm not that high on Houston. But to me, I think it's actually I think it was a great situation for him to go. I genuinely do. Get Kevin Porter Jr. out of there, bro. Run him and Jalen Green point guard shooting guard, bro. Them boys are running up, bro.
Yeah, I do agree. Get Kevin Porter Jr. of Houston, but this is not the show for that. You spoke positively about Amen Thompson, so I will give the other side of the coin, the more negative side. The biggest question mark with Amen Thompson is obviously the competition in which he was going against. The Overtime Elite is not a proven organization. The competition in which they go against, unless it's the other overtime teams, is not very good. Even the overtime teams, it's not tremendously great competition. There's a few D1 prospects, few high-level prospects, but for the most part, it's not extremely high-level basketball, very AAU vibey. But I do think if you do have concerns with Amen and Ausar, that would be it. You're saying they just look like outliers compared to non-NBA
because of
talent.
where they're playing at,
And I do believe that's a valid concern to have. Now, the reason why I'm not as low on Amen Thompson and Ausar Thompson as the people who are on that train is I believe you can recognize NBA level talent when you see it. And I believe Amen Thompson, Ausar Thompson look like NBA level talents regardless of who they go against. Now, you might say they look like another level compared to these guys, which is perfectly fine. But I believe if you go to an open gym and you saw Kyrie Irving playing basketball, you could see he's an NBA level talent. Now,
regardless who he's playing,
does it mean that you take it with more of a grain of salt because he's going against nobodies? Yes, but you can see his talent is NBA level. And that's my stance on Amen Thompson. That athleticism, even against no comp, he's still in the top 1% of athletes in the NBA. You don't need to see him compared to NBA athletes to see he's more athletic than damn near the whole NBA. You don't need to see that. His jump shot is not there. I don't think it's ever going to come around. He's like 60. I believe he's a 68% free throw shooter. I believe he was like 25. I can check that for you while you're going, yeah. I believe he was like 25% from three. The mid-range game is not really there. So I believe his scoring is never going to be great in the NBA. I don't think he's ever going to really be able to be a highly efficient, dynamic scorer because of the way teams play defense now, the ability for them to go under screens on him. Now, there are obviously counters to teams going under screens. You can just flip the angle of the screen. You can set double screens, staggers. There's counters.
There's a lot of counters, yeah.
But the fact of the matter is someone who can shoot will always provide more value than someone who can't. Now, his ability to not shoot is something that is cause for concern, but I do believe his ability to play in transition will translate. His ability to facilitate is something that will translate. There's a certain feel for the game that you can see with him. His ability to map the floor, his ability to get downhill and create opportunities for his teammates, his ability to just see his teammates in advantageous positions and just make the right read. Those type of things are all there. Now, if you want to discount all of that because the level of competition isn't high, that's perfectly fine. But for someone who, A, has stocks invested in the Houston Rockets, so kind of has to be optimistic, I'm going to believe in the level of talent that I believe he has. And I believe, for the most part, it will translate. I think defensively, the tools he has, now his awareness did falter quite a lot. And you could argue that maybe his awareness faltered because he wasn't going against NBA level talent, so he could afford to take plays off. So maybe against NBA level guys, he might be more locked in. His ability to finish around the rim, to me, looks like something that would translate that burst.
It does, man. And his acrobatics in the air is kind of insane, bro.
Now, I will say I do think he does need some better touch around the rim because there are times
that is true.
where other than dunks, I do think his ability to convert on layups is a bit sketchy sometimes. So obviously some touch around the rim won't hurt him. The jump shot is the biggest swing factor, but if everything does hit, I do believe you are correct in saying he does have a higher ceiling than Brandon Miller.
He does.
I will say
that's 1 point. Mars agrees. 1 point.
I do think he does also have the lowest floor of these top four. If there's anyone who's going to be a quote unquote bust, I do think it's Thompson due to the fact that the shooting is a very far away. I don't think the scoring is ever really going to be great. Defensively, it might not translate. And then at this point, you just have an athletic point guard with a solid feel for the game, which might not be great. So there is cause for concern with Thompson, which is why I think he's probably the most polarizing prospect in the top five. But this does lead us swiftly on to his twin brother, who went number 5.
Look at that.
Ausar Thompson went number 5 to Detroit. Now, a lot of the same competition questions are all there. So we don't really need to harp on that again.
I think his, though, I will say this. I think his is just a little bit more glaring just because of how raw he is on offense. I mean, we're talking about a guy, he did shoot 28% from 3, 65% from the line. But yeah, I think some of his, though, is just a little bit more glaring just because his handle is just not as tight either. But you could just say he's just as crazy of an athlete. But I do think his defensive floor is better than his brother's. And that's, how they talked about it, because what they had to do when they both had to play coming up, they both had to take, two different roles playing on the same team. So, but, Ausar took that defensive that defensive assignment, and I think he's one of the best defensive talents to come out of this draft, because his agility on defense with that footwork will make him a very good point of attack defender with him having very active hands. I do think that although this isn't like the greatest negative to him, I do feel like he's a little bit too jibbity, like when he's trying to close out. Like sometimes he can get beat off with that fake jab, right? And then somebody goes left. That can get him stumbling a little bit. But just off a defensive talent standpoint, I think it's crazy. And I think putting him in Detroit looks nice. I do feel like, though, the offensive side is something that is a bit more glaring that we have to look at with him.
Yeah, I do agree with you defensively. I do think he has very high upside defensively and can come in and be a very strong man defender instantly. Now, his feel defensively in the team setting is yet to be determined, but with Monty Williams, who's a strong coach, we'll see how that translates. I do believe he has a higher ceiling as a jump shooter than his brother. I do see more reason to be optimistic about his ability to shoot, not from day one, but just going forward. I do believe he can become a solid shooter. But I do agree with you offensively. There is a lot to be desired. He's not as good of a playmaker as his brother. He's not as good of a ball handler. Also, finishing around the rim, he's not as good as his athleticism should be.
Yeah, it is. That is something we got to talk about.
Yeah, that's the biggest surprise to me. Someone that athletic, his ability to finish around the rim, his touch is worse than his
because
brother.
He's so fast in the open court. Like, he glides in the open court. So, it's kind of weird his finishing isn't that great. In comparison to his athleticism.
That is somewhere that I do think he has to work on. I do like his feel as a cutter. I do think he can provide value in that realm, although in Detroit with the spacing being as bad as it appears it will be, I'm not sure how many of those opportunities he will get, but I do like his feel as like a third or fourth initiator or someone who can be a connective level passer. Those type of things, I do think his floor is higher than his brothers, but I do think the ceiling is lower ultimately as well, which is why I believe men probably went higher. But I do think the baseline of what Ausar can be is a better player than what a men can be. And they went straight after another. They are twins. I mean, they're probably going to get compared for the rest of their careers. So
they will. Yeah,
nothing surprising with that. So I am curious to see how they both translate to the NBA, because this is a very weird situation, just coming from a different league. Twins going in the top 5 for two franchises who have kind of been connected in this whole tanking stage for a while now as well. So it's very interesting to see what Ausar Thompson is going to do. But now we're going to move on to one of my favorite prospects in the draft outside of the top 5. And that is Anthony Black. I want to ask you, Anthony Black obviously drafted to Orlando. Yeah. What are your thoughts on him going there and then just him as a prospect?
Here's the thing. My only thing, though, I don't really like the fit of him going to Orlando. Now, him as a prospect, I like, because we're talking about a guy who is how tall is he again? Like 6'8", 6'7"?
6'7",
right?
I believe.
6'7". Showed very, very good connective passing, which will really help Paolo and Franz and Wendell. But I do believe like some of the lack of scoring and shot making, adding to the Magic team, that now you're just adding another non-creator guard into that team, it does leave me with a bit more questions. But him as a talent, we're just talking about Anthony Black's talent, I do feel like he could still be a very good player if he can develop some of those things, because what he was doing at Arkansas was pretty crazy. And he did shoot 70% from the free throw line that I'm looking at right now. So still doesn't really show signs of how good that jump shot will be and that shot making will be come time in the NBA. But I do think Anthony Black will, he can pan out to be nice. You already know me, man. I like 6'7", rangy type of point guards that can show some signs of defensive upside. Like if I'm building NBA teams, I'm looking for a 6'7" point guard. Me personally, Mars, and that's mainly because
that's the way the NBA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I like. It's just I just like watching them play too. It's really fun to watch. So that's what I think about it. I don't really like the fit over there. I'll be honest with you. I really don't. I don't know how you look at it. I just don't, because I don't know if adding another non-creator to that team. I don't know.
I'm a bit higher on the fit than you are. Maybe not the fit. I'm a bit higher on the pick than you are, because other than Cam Whitmore, I don't know what prospects really, and I don't know if Cam Whitmore really made sense either. But I don't know what.
Yeah, because
I don't know what pick really made sense at this spot. Because if you want to take a pure shooter at this spot, I do think it would have been too high.
Yeah, so you're not taking Gradey Dick with the sixth pick in the NBA.
And most of the prospects around this spot were either bigs or just weren't great shooters themselves. So I think a player like Anthony Black, who to me, hot take maybe, the best passer in this class, in my opinion. Also a very high level defender, very intelligent, understands the game, understands rotations, very strong hands, pretty versatile, can even make some help side blocks as well. Just a very strong defender, understands the game very well, surprisingly athletic, something that I didn't really expect to see, but surprisingly athletic. Then, not to mention, I do believe that you put him in a situation where you can get scorers around him like a Paolo's life is going to become easier next to Anthony Black.
Yeah, because he's a very good connective passer. So they're gonna be like, even the pick and roll with him, or DHOs potentially with him and Paolo, it might go a little crazy, man. Now, to be honest with you, Orlando's future, I'm still high on, because their next pick, I have some vested. Investment.
We'll get to that.
But Anthony Black, shout out Anthony Black, man.
But yeah, I think the cause for concern with him is his scoring aggression, then obviously the jump shot. And before we move on, I want to ask you, where do you think is coming from that we're getting all these guard prospects? Not just guard prospects, but all these 6'7" and up guys, just prospects in general, that can't shoot. Like, we've got Scoot Henderson. What's the biggest concern with him? His shooting. And Ausar Thompson, shooting. Anthony Black, shooting. There's more prospects down the line that we're going to say their biggest swing factor is going to be their ability to shoot. Now, we know what the NBA is looking like now. Shooting has become the biggest factor. So where do you think all these prospects are coming from where shooting is their biggest issue? Is it because they grew up on LeBron James and the wings?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Like, why are we seeing worse shooting prospects now in the era of shooting than you'd probably expect?
That's a very good question, Mars, because I don't understand that either. Because if you add a shot to what they already have, like, we'll talk about an entirely different prospect. But it's weird. I honestly don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Maybe you have a theory, a Mars theory, as some would say, of why this is, but I do not have a dream theory for this. I have no idea, because I think that's a very good point. Like, why are we in this era of shooting? We keep talking about the shooting of this era. It's why a lot of people discredit Bird, because he only took 2 3-pointer attempts for his era. So that is a bit weird in an era that was they're shooting a bunch more threes. Why are some of these prospects not, like, why is their biggest weakness, or their glaring weakness, I should say, is shooting? I think that's a very, very good question to ask. And I unfortunately don't have the answer. I don't have the answer for that. I don't know.
Yeah, I just find it interesting. I do think, like, if I had to throw out a reason,
a dart on the wall, man.
The closest thing I have to somewhat of an explanation is I believe most of these kids grew up watching LeBron James. And I'm not saying LeBron can't shoot. Don't get mad at me.
I'm saying that's what you're saying.
I'm saying what LeBron James is. He's a 6'8" wing, tremendous athlete, get downhill, can facilitate, can rebound, versatile defensively. The biggest question mark with him was his outside shot. Now we have a bunch of kids who grew up with that LeBron James. That was their idol. They're growing up to become 6'7", 6'8", tremendous athletes. Now they obviously understand the feel for the game. They're tremendous passers, can get downhill, can finish around the rim, can be versatile defensively. But maybe the jump shot just wasn't as focused upon, especially when you're that much of a high-level athlete. How much do you really work on your jump shot at the lower levels when you're just bigger, faster, and stronger than everyone? Now, I think as kids maybe are born nowadays, and maybe kids that were maybe born in 2008, who grew up on the not Steph Curry era, but on the pace and space, the 3-point shooting, those kids, I believe they are going to be more geared towards shooting. So I think,
you know what? I just seen a comment.
To wait till like 2029 drafts for the shooters, in my opinion.
I just seen a comment, and I think that might be a part of the answer too. Juju said, when you're hyper athletic in high school and college, you don't feel the need to work on your shot. And like, I've seen that a lot from high school. Like, when somebody's just that like athletically free, they're not working on their jump shot that much. Like, hey, I can just, I can still probe my way and get into the basket, just because I'm bigger, stronger, and faster than you. But once as you progress through the NBA hierarchy, or basketball hierarchy, I should say, you're going to be playing more NBA talent who you're not as big or not as fast or not as strong as them. So now it's like, oh, you need a jump shot. But here's the problem. You weren't working on your jump shot enough to the point where, number one, you're fixing those shooting mechanics to be able to shoot, and it's going to hurt you in the long run, because those are things that I feel like every high school athlete, I feel like you should be working on your jump shot pretty consistently. I just think having a jump shot it just adds so many counters.
It just raises your floor. So.
It really does. It just adds so many things you can do, because now if I have a jump shot, now somebody got a hard closeout on me. So now I can use my dribble to go create a pull-up jumper now, or I can go all the way downhill. Like, it just causes a lot of havoc for a lot of people. I got to go set this screen for somebody. The screener has to stay attached to me. He can't play drop and try to help out the ball handler attacking downhill. So it's just a lot of things you having a jump shot adds. And I'm not talking about, you don't need a Curry-like jump shot. You don't even need a Gradey Dick-like jump shot. Like, a consistent jump shot that you can hit during a game that can make the defense be honest with you. I feel like that's something that Anthony Black should try to hope to achieve, Amen Thompson to hope to achieve, or the other twin to hope to achieve. Just a consistent jump shot that can keep the NBA defenses honest to the point where they're not going to be going under the screen, or they're going to be playing drop majority of the coverages they'll be running at you, because at that point, it makes it easier to guard you. And, in NBA, like I just said, you're not as big as some of the players. You're not as fast, or you're not as strong as you were when you were playing high school talents in comparison to NBA talents.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered it, the importance of shooting in the NBA.
Yeah.
But I do expect to see better shooting prospects in the years coming up.
So you're saying let's say, okay, Curry really started making his scene in 2015.
Yes, I'm saying kids who were born in 08,
you could say
7 years
I was going to say 08.
So let's say 08, you're 18, 19. The 2026, 2027. So
you're saying by 2026.
That's where I believe the highly skilled shooters will be coming into the NBA. And I still think they'll have the feel as playmakers, etc. But I do believe the jump shot will be far more developed. And we'll see. Come back to the Hoop Talk podcast episode 9 in 5 years, and we'll see if I was correct. If there's a prospect who came in shooting 42% from 3 on 9 attempts, we'll see, maybe. But next, we're going to go in a bit of a weird order because these picks got traded. I want to talk about the player who went to the Pacers, even though they were the lower pick first. So let's talk about Jarace Walker going to the Pacers. He was picked number 8, but he went to the Pacers who had the 7th pick. So let's talk a little bit about Jarace Walker. What's your thoughts on Jarace Walker out of Houston, and how do you?
I love Jarace Walker going into Indiana. I feel like that's one of the better situations he could have went to. Going to play alongside Tyrese Halliburton, a guy who's one of the more premier playmakers in the league. And I feel like you pairing those two together can make a pretty dangerous duo in the long run, because Jarace Walker, I feel like his ability to be very good as a transition passer, and one of the things that Tyrese Halliburton thrived throughout the NBA season, one of the things how he was able to get so many assists was his ability to pass in the open court. So if you get now Jarace Walker, just imagine Tyrese Halliburton throwing it up to Jarace Walker, and because he's such a great processor type guy too, he can quickly throw that other pass to a guy, let's say Chris Duarte, who's on the court as well. So it's a lot of opportunities and advantages I think are going to now be created with Jarace Walker. We're talking about a guy with insane defensive talent, has some scoring upside, and I do believe this was the better player in this situation. I'm happy that Indiana, out of these two, I think that this was the better player in this situation, and I'm happy that Indiana decided to get him, because I do feel like also he's a very good rebounder. I didn't think I mentioned that. So I do think Jarace Walker is going to be a very, very good NBA player, because I was telling Mars, my two other players, we'll get into them, but this was another guy I wanted to send to you. I had 3 guys for this draft that I personally put it on my list that are my guys. So if they pan out, I'm going to be bragging. 1,000%, I'm a brag. He's a part of the 3. We're going to get to the other 2. We will for sure get to the other 2, but he is one of the 3 guys where when I turned on the tape on Sunday, just grinding out the film, watching some of these players, because I was an idiot not watching all these, these players. So I wasn't doing my due diligence as a basketball fan. So, I did some late film watching, man. I did what I had to do. I think this was the perfect place for Jarace Walker.
Yeah, I like in my mental mock draft, I never actually wrote one out. in my mental mock draft, I had Jarace Walker going to Indiana. He was outside the top 4 who I got perfect. Jarace Walker is like the only other person in the lottery that I got correct. So I had a feeling he was going to Indiana. I do think he was the perfect pick for them. A versatile 4 who can guard a variety of position, very versatile just in terms of scheme defensively, strong rebounder on both sides of the floor. There is some hope for a jump shot later down the line, but once again, we have another prospect where the jump shot is a big factor for them. A surprisingly good passer, not like as a primary decision maker.
Yeah, I like his passing more so in the transition. That's where I feel like it shines. That's why
I agree. But someone who has solid feel for the game in that aspect, I think that's something that Indiana can benefit from. Take a little bit of the burden of Tyrese Halliburton. His ability to crash the offensive glass is something that I think will be very valuable, especially with Miles Turner usually hanging around 3.9 line. You now have someone who can actually be a threat on the offensive glass. I just think he's the perfect 4-man that they needed, especially at the 7th pick, the 8th pick technically, but the 7th pick. Great value there. I think Jarace Walker, a very simple prospect, not simple prospect, But very simple pick, high floor, not a tremendously high upside, just a very solid pick at the 7th pick in the draft. Now, to me, the next guy is the total opposite of low floor, high of mediocre upside. It's number 7 pick, technically number 8, Bilal Coulibaly, who played for Mets 92 alongside Victor Wembanyama.
So I was gonna say that because I feel like that's something a lot of people didn't know, is that he played alongside Victor. So I feel like that's something that needs to be mentioned when we talk about him too.
Yeah, but I like I alluded to, I don't think he's a high floor mediocre upside guy. I think he's a very low floor, very high upside player. I mean, do you care to guess what the biggest swing factor for him is going to be? Just like every other player in the draft appears to be.
6'6" guy.
Yeah, we have another 6'7" guy. We have another 6'7" guy who cannot shoot. So once again, the biggest swing factor for him will be his shooting. He's 6'7", tremendous length. I believe he's got like a 7'3" wingspan.
Yeah.
The defensive upside is there. Versatile, moves his feet pretty well. Very fluid athlete. Solid in the open floor. The passing feel, I haven't seen much from it. I haven't seen great passing.
What I've really seen is just his ability to drive, like his ability to like keep defenses honest when he's probing and actually getting downhill. I feel like that's even that can be inconsistent sometimes. But I have to admit, that's mainly from the last game I watched of him. So it's
Yeah, and in the NBA, I'm not too high on his ability to handle either. And in the NBA, I don't know how teams are not really going to respect him from a closing out standpoint. So I don't know if he's really going to be able to really tilt the defense in his favor. Maybe he can get a few cuts in there here and there because teams are going to leave him wide open. He might be able to get a few back cuts in there. But offensively, I do think Washington is a perfect place for him because they are clearly hitting the rebuild button. If there's any team that's going to give him the chance to develop on the floor, give him the PT he needs, it is Washington. But if everything does pan out, if the jump shot does somehow come along, even though I don't see the route for it to come along, seems to be a very slow release. It reminds me a bit of Scotty Barnes in the way he shoots. It's very slow, mechanical. It's not great. I don't see any sort of shot creation from the mid-range coming along with a jump shot like that. I don't see a post game coming on. I don't see very high upside offensively for Bilal Coulibaly. I do see a defensive way for him in the league, and if he become a viable outside shooter, I do think Washington will have a good pick here. But I do believe if somehow everything works out, they've got a great pick at number 8, but I'm not very high on this pick. And if there's anything that you'd like to add here with Bilal Coulibaly, or did I cover?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, you covered it all. Like I said, I really noticed the driving. I feel like could be something pretty interesting for Washington, a situation where he most likely going to play off the bench next to, Tyus Jones. But in the minutes he plays with Jordan Poole, that can be pretty interesting how that duo could look on offense, because he's going into a situation now where the Wizards have made it clear as day that they're going into a rebuild mode and they're going to be playing their young guys. So he is in the situation that he's going to be getting the minutes, I do believe. So we'll see how he turns out, man. Because I'll be honest with you, I probably won't be watching as many Wizards games. Obviously, I'm going to tune in there, here and there, because it's my job as a content creator and because I like basketball. But, it is what it is, man.
Before we move on to the next prospect, let's address these super chats. MBRK the Great.
Nice.
I believe I did that right. He said, love from London. What is the best route for NBA prospects? I believe, generally speaking, the best route to the NBA for most prospects is still through college. I do believe most prospects still come from college. Now, the highest level prospects can go play pro overseas. They can go to the G League.
I was gonna say that really depends on the prospects. It's really hard. I don't know.
But when you're speaking generally, 60 players get drafted. The top ones, there's more of a variety of this guy might not be in. Like I think this year of the top 5, only Brandon Miller was in college. So short of the highest level prospects,
we can say this. There is a transition happening right now, though. But as of this moment, I probably still say college, but 1,000% transition happening. We're seeing these EuroLeague guys come in. We're seeing guys now. The new G League Ignite team is happening. So maybe this
overtime elite thing might come.
Overtime elite
depends on
right. They just got 2 guys in the top 5, so that's something that's pretty interesting. So
yeah, but if you're not projected to be a high lottery pick and you're maybe projected to be a late first round or a second round pick, college is probably the best route to go. I mean, for the most part, everyone outside the lottery was a college player. I mean, obviously, you got guys like Leonard Miller, who was in the G League. Sidi Sissoko was also in the G League. Sure, there's other players who came from the G League or overseas, but for the most part, college is the best route for most of the prospects. The higher level ones, they have more freedom of where they want to go. But I still think at this point, college is the best way to go if you are just hoping to make the league. Next, we have Ethan again. He said, I feel like the Twins were drafted back-to-back just for the story. I believe Ethan is one of the people who is lower on the Twins. But I will say, I don't think any franchise is taking someone in the top 5 for the story. I do believe they think I think they think Ausar Thompson is just really good. I don't think it's for the story. I don't think you're willing to throw away a top 5 pick.
I think I think that was a nice pick for them. Obviously, I thought that was Cam Whitmore's position, and then we saw what happened. But I thought that was Cam Whitmore's pick. But obviously, I think he'll bring in that. Can you imagine him? And I think people are forgetting about Jaden Ivey, man. Like,
I mean, can you blame them? Not many people.
That's true.
Not many people are watching the Pistons.
That is true, but I'm like, now you're gonna add those 2 athletic guys running in the wing, and you have Cade Cunningham just manning the middle of that. I feel like, and then you still got Jalen Duren too. Like, I feel like that's a situation. I feel like drafting Ausar wasn't a. I feel like that you don't draft that for the story. I feel like that's a nice guy you should pick in that position.
Yeah, I agree. This super chat from Juju, actually, I think the answer to this question
he answered it.
Would be the next prospect we have coming up, which is why I've saved this super chat for now.
Oh, okay. Who said?
So Juju asked, do you guys have any rookie that could have that Keegan Murray type of year? Not really a rookie of the year, but fits their system perfectly. I believe one of the key answers to that is the number 9 pick who went to Utah, Taylor Hendricks. I believe he is just the prototypical 3-and-D big, can stretch the floor already, a very solid shooter out of UCF, plays defense at a very high level, can protect the rim, pretty versatile at his height. I think he probably, of any pick in the top 10, if there's any guarantee of what this guy can be at the bare minimum.
I agree, man. I agree.
I think Taylor Hendricks has easily the lowest floor in the draft and can become a very high level contributor from day one. Maybe not win Rookie of the Year, but I do believe he will be a very valuable weapon from the moment he enters.
Mars is hitting it on the nail. He was my second guy. Yeah.
But yeah, you are very high on Taylor Hendricks.
I am.
I'm gonna give you the floor for you.
Let me have the floor, man. Let me have the floor because his defensive upside is there. I'm happy that he ended up in Utah. Can you imagine just him and Walker Kessler just? Manning.
That's one of the best defensive.
Already. That's already one of the best defensive front courts. Now, I will say this because Mars did it. I have to beat it. I have to keep it honest with you guys. I will be the bad guy just a little bit with him. I do feel like he does still have a lot of questions on offense, especially him as a self-creator. He has a very loose handle, and if you look at the finishing numbers, they weren't that great either. So he probably is going to be playing as that play finisher who finishes off plays that was capitalized off his other teammates. But I do believe that athleticism, his versatility that he brings with his jump shot, because I did not think his jumper was going to be that nice. I feel like he has pretty smooth mechanics with his jump shot as well. And I still feel like he has a lot of untapped potential because if he can grow with that handle, just improve that self-creation just a little bit more, Taylor Hendricks. And I will be pushing some nasty agendas, not from this podcast because we have to keep it hoop talk, but I will be pushing some nasty agendas outside of it because he was one of my guys that I had going in before the draft, and I'm so happy that Utah ended up picking him because I think what he and Walker Kessler can do as a duo on the defensive end is going to be pretty crazy. And he still got Lauri Markkanen, who is like a top 40, top 50 player in the NBA. I feel like, and he's a pretty efficient scorer. I think what Taylor brings as a connector next to Lauri Markkanen might look a little good as well. So I'm high on Taylor Hendricks. I would have loved if he ended up in Dallas, though. That would have been really nice. They were this close. They were this close to getting him. They were this close. But I'm happy he still ended up in Utah, man. I hope they treat him right over there, right? I really do, man. It'd be sad if he doesn't.
I'm just happy there's a prospect whose biggest swing factor isn't his shooting, and it's actually
yes, bro.
That's what's making me happy. I'm just happy finally there's a prospect where the question isn't about his shot and it's about his ability to create for himself in the half court, which is something that, I mean, at 6'9", probably playing the 4. How much do you really need self-creation? I mean, that's why I think he's probably has the highest floor because
you don't really need him to be that self-creator. You can have him be that screener for you. Have him just in the dunker spot because that's where he was really nice as a play finisher. I really do hope his finishing numbers improve in the NBA because that's one big weakness on his offensive side of the ball. It's him being able to finish at the rim. And if you're 6'9", come on, Taylor. Got to be better at finishing at the cup, man. You got to with that athleticism. I got to be better at finishing at the rim. But happy he still ended up in Utah.
I'm also I think is a very good pick. Before we move on to the next pick, Ethan tapped in again. He said, "My fault. I'm not low on the Twins. I forgot that we don't troll here at Master Sports." no, we do not. Real hoop talk around here. I'm actually fine with where they landed. Okay,
that's great, man. That's great.
Thank you for clarifying. But yes, real hoop talk over here. Although at the end of the show, stay tuned. I might have a bit of news for you guys, so just stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. But now on to the number 10 pick. This pick got traded. It was Dallas pick, but they traded it to OKC. They traded.
And I actually want to say this because I don't think people actually understood it. What this trade did, it freed up cap space actually for Dallas, and now they have $17 million they can work with in this offseason, and that's why they traded it.
There we go. Thank you for educating everyone. But OKC got the pick. They took Cason Wallace at number 10. I will start with this one for me because
actually you start with this one. Yeah.
As someone who is very high on OKC from a distance, they're probably one of my highest watched teams, especially last year. Cason Wallace, one of my highest prospects as well. I was very high.
Oh, one of your highest? Okay.
I spoke about him a few months ago. I love his defensive upside. I love what he brings as a POA defender. I love his feel for the game. Also, the jump shot is much better than I think a lot of people give him credit for. I do believe he's actually a very solid shooter, can play without the basketball. He actually probably benefits from playing without the basketball more than on the ball because I do think his creation for himself and others is probably his biggest flaw as well, similar to Taylor Hendricks. But I do believe his ability in the mid-range is very strong. His ability from 3 is there. It's not tremendous, but it's there. He's an okay free throw shooter, which shows there's room for growth as a shooter. But obviously the highest upside for him is defensively. And I do think upon more reflection, because at the time I didn't really like it because I'm like Shea and Giddey already the backcourt. Where does
thank you. I thought I was the only one that thought that, but I didn't watch him. So I was like,
but yeah,
why are people going crazy for this pick?
Upon reflection, Giddey's about 6'7".
Yeah.
Shea is about 6'6". Cason Wallace is
6'5", 6'4", or 6'5". Yeah.
So I don't see as much cause for concern from a size standpoint. Dream has now left us, but I don't see as much concern from a size standpoint with Cason Wallace in those lineups. I do believe it does work with all 3 of them on the court at the same time. I do believe the odd man out may be Lou Dort. Welcome back, Dream. I don't know what happened there, but welcome back.
I pressed the refresh button on accident.
L Dream. But I do believe the fit does make sense. I do believe Lou Dort is the person who's probably going to have their minutes reduced to make room for.
Yeah, it has to be Lou Dort, unfortunately.
Which, I mean, Lou Dort coming off the bench or just playing lower minutes, I mean, that just shows the depth that OKC are going to have. I really do like this pick upon more reflection. Defensively, I think if Shea does pan out defensively is the upside that he has as well and really buys in with Cason Wallace. That is a very scary defensive backcourt. Josh Giddey is just a very smart defender. He does have limitations in terms of his foot speed, but still provides good value rebounding, understands rotations, does have some decent length. He's not a total negative. I do believe he's probably an overall neutral defender. Then obviously you've got Chet coming in as their rookie this year, but that's from a different draft. We don't really need to talk too much about him. But I'm very high on this Cason Wallace pick upon more reflection. But I want to ask you before we do move on to number 11, which is another prospect that you really like, by the way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Cason Wallace, number 10?
Okay, same like you. I didn't understand it, and that's mainly because I didn't watch him. So obviously, when I had to watch him yesterday, I had to see what the hype was about, and out for 100% see it on defense. As you alluded to, a monstrous point of attack defender with a tenacious skill set. He just blows up actions off the ball as well. And then on offense, I do believe he's a very high level decision maker. And what I mean by high level decision maker, I mean his ability to make reads always on point, but also be a very low error type guy, right? He's not going to be turning the ball over or putting the ball in harm's way for the other team to be able to get and steal those possessions from his team. So adding that to OKC, I believe, should prove to be pretty decent. Also, because I actually did my homework. I got some stats for you. He actually is as in terms of being a self-created finisher, he finished 71% at the rim, and 91% of those looks was unassisted. So his ability to get to the rim works. He can get to the rim just on his own. But imagine now with Shea setting him up, because he's actually pretty quick, him doing that off ball, off cuts, or him coming off pin downs and certain actions like that, which I do believe is going to be pretty nice on OKC. I'm liking, of course, we already talked about this, Mars. I already liked what OKC's direction was going, and I like that they picked up Cason Wallace, because I was a guy, I wasn't as high on Lou Dort, even though just Lou Dort's appeal, just how he's talked about. I get it. Cool guy, that's why I like him. But I do believe, man, Lou Dort is such a bad finisher. So I think adding Cason Wallace, who is the complete opposite of that, should help this team. And I believe his jump shot is a bit overblown too, like you were just talking about. I think he has a pretty decent midi that he can get to off a pick and roll.
Yeah, that's pretty much all there really is to say about Cason Wallace. Before we move on to one of Dream's favorite prospects, Invasion Alert said wanted Taylor Hendricks, but happy with what the Mavs done. Davis were gone, and Davis Bertans. Lively, a 7-1 rim protector we need, plus 6'8" wing Omax, Kyle Anderson for Mavs now. Read signs, please. We will get into Dallas very soon. They're actually coming up after.
They're about to come up like right here.
So, So I will save your super chat and I will actually read it again when the Dallas pick comes up. So you're going to get doubly read. So congratulations. But the next pick is one of Dream's guys. So I'm going to let Dream go. Once
this is my third guy, people.
Yep. And another little spiel for Dream here. Jett Howard going number 11 to Orlando. Just tell me about Jett Howard and why you're so high.
I'm high on Jett because I know a lot of people have been labeling him as just a shooter. That's just what he is, and I just feel like that's very far from the truth. I feel like if you actually dive into the film and you look at his handle, his ability to be that shot maker and his improvements that he can make as a self-creator is going to be proved to be pretty fatal. And I feel like putting him on a team with Wendell Carter Jr., like we alluded to, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, some of these guys are going to be able to put pressure at the rim. So him being that catch and shoot threat is already going to be there. But also him being that DHO threat should be there as well, because if people who actually watch Orlando Magic know one of their staples in the offense is the Franz Wagner and the Wendell Carter DHO. So you're adding Jett Howard, who I believe actually has a better looking, like his shot mechanics as a shooter. I do believe he's going to be just a better shooter than Franz Wagner. So adding him into that fold is going to work. I just feel like him being that 6'8", he has the length, like that shooting paired up with that handle with just a quick trigger to be able to just shoot the ball, like out of any movement, like out of him popping off a screen or when somebody's holding him, when he's trying to back cut and still be able to curl off screens and be able to shoot pretty handily and still has some counters with that crossover and step back. I'm just really high on Jett Howard, man. I just really am, Mars. I'm just high on this type of prospect. I am. I just feel like Jett Howard is going to be one of those guys who's going to turn out to be really great, who I feel like a lot of people were questioning this pick. They're like, I don't know if we should have been this high. I've even had some people tell me he should even be a lottery pick, which, okay, I understand because he's being labeled as only a shooter. He's 6'8". Of course, he has question marks as a defender and he has question marks as a finisher, which I do believe is something that has to be mentioned because, come on, Jett Howard, you're 6'8". I'm about to go through this spiel again, Mars. You're 6'8". You have a nice handle, but I do feel like his burst and his ability and his lift isn't that great. I don't think it's that great, and that's one of the reasons why he struggled as a finisher in Michigan. But I feel like Jett Howard is going to be really good, and he's my third guy. Jarace Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Jett Howard. These are the guys I'm betting on to be really, really, really good in the NBA. And if they turn out to be good, Mars, just know I'm gonna be talking. But even if one of them doesn't turn out to be good, I'm gonna be talking about one of them. I'm winning either way. At least one of them is gonna be good. Gonna be really good, man. At least one of them will be a high level starter. At least, man. At least
I'm gonna be the contrarian.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm one of the people who didn't like the Orlando. I didn't like it. I do think he went too high. I don't think he should have been in the lottery. So I am the guy that Drew was talking about. I do like the outside shot. I do believe I think he was like 37% from three.
He was 37% from three.
I actually think he's a better shooter than the 37% suggests. I do think a lot of that comes just from his self-creation. If you create for yourself more, you're going to shoot a low percentage. I do think just off the catch and off movement, I do think he's actually a really strong shooter and can be pushing 38, 39% if that's what his role is asking him to do. But however, 6'8", he's a terrible rebounder. Terrible. I'm sure I don't know the numbers, but he's a terrible.
You don't want to know the numbers.
Yeah, he's a terrible rebounder. The playmaking isn't great. Defensively, it seems I'm not going to say all over the place, but it was
very. He averaged 2.8 rebounds.
Yeah, 6'8", averaging 2.8 rebounds. I mean, but also, defensively, I'm not going to say all over the place, but it was very inconsistent, especially from an effort standpoint. His rim finishing is a very big cause for concern. His ability,
I've always been the type of guy. I'm like, how are you getting back cut so much? Like I've always wondered, even with Luka, like how do you keep getting back cut? Like what are you wondering on defense? I think
they just take plays off.
Yeah.
And I will say I will relay this back to my experiences of football.
Football.
It's different to basketball, but I think the mindset is pretty similar. I do think sometimes when you're out there, you know that there's a possibility that someone can back cut you or someone can make a run in behind.
Yeah.
But your hope is please just stand in the corner. Just don't move. I'm not trying to have to guard the cut. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hope you just stay there. Let us both have a good time on this one instance. Don't make a run. Don't do that. And then when they do, you end up being behind the play because you just didn't want to have to do that. That was my experience anyway. I was pretty lazy, so I didn't want people to make runs, so I was often behind the play. Like I think it's a similar mindset in that regard, especially when you're an offensive player playing defense. But yeah, I'm not as high on Jett Howard. The rim finishing, I'm not high on his ability to create separation as consistently due to, I think, the lack of burst and acceleration. I just don't think he's going to be able to get by his defender as much as you probably would hope. But I do like his upside as a shooter, but I personally wasn't have taken him at number 11. Now, back to the guy who spoke about Dallas, we're going to get into Dereck Lively, who went number 12, who is someone who I'm relatively high on. Not tremendously high, but relatively high on.
Yeah, I feel like this was I feel like he's one of those.
I think it was a no-brainer pick. I think it was a no-brainer.
I feel like it's one of those situations, like he's a good fit for the team and he's one of the best available. So you might as well take him here to Dallas. And I feel like that's a great pick. I feel like it was a great pick for them.
Yeah, we don't need to spend too much time on it. Dallas needed a rim protector. They got one of the best. They got, other than Victor, probably the best rim protector in the class. Extreme, I've seen somewhere that he had some of the best defensive metrics in college basketball.
He does, bro. He does. Obviously, this is nasty, but per 70, 5 blocks a game.
Okay, there we go. I mean, cool dream the stat guy.
Do you want the per 100? 7.2.
Oh, please. There's upside.
That's quick math for you guys. That's quick math.
Yeah, there you go. Dream the mathematician. But the outside shot shows signs of life. In workouts and the draft combine and stuff, he was actually doing really good with his shooting workouts. If he even can become some sort of a stretch big who can play defense, sort of a Miles Turner type, that's exactly what Dallas needs. Dereck Lively's a very good pick for them in that regard. I think I had Dereck Lively going number 12 in the draft, so I got that right. I had him going to OKC though, so I got that wrong. I didn't expect the trade. I did think he was going number 12 though.
That would have been nice too, though.
Yeah, I like Derrick Lively next to Jett. That's what I thought was happening. So I was partially right. I got the pick right, like the number right. I got the team incorrect. But there's not too much to say about Derrick. Like, I do think he needs to get better touch around the rim because for the most part, other than on dunks, his ability in the post, there's not much of a post game there against length. His ability to finish over length without dunking isn't great. So if he wants to really have a higher offensive upside, I do think that's what he needs to improve on. There's never going to be like much playmaking, Phil. I do think he needs to be more aggressive as a scorer. Watching him, there's a bunch of times he gets offensive rebounds. He doesn't even look to go back up with it. Straight kickouts for threes and stuff, which can be valuable in the right situation. But sometimes when you're wide open under the rim, just dunk the ball, please. That would help. So I do think if he wants to really maximize his potential, especially offensively, that's where he needs to be. But I do think Dallas are going to use him as a lob threat or just someone who can pick and pop. That's going to be his role. And then defensively protecting the rim, I do think he's going to provide tremendous value there.
To a team that lacks a lot of that.
Yeah, lacks tremendously. So that would really, that pretty much sums up Derrick Lively. And then the next pick is who I actually think Orlando should have taken at number 11. Gradey Dick went to Toronto.
I feel like that's what? That's a fair guy, Mars, because I feel like
that's the shooter I think they need.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I already said it earlier. I feel like he was the best shooting prospect, just the best shooter in this draft, period, right? Like he just shot 40% from three on like a ton of threes. I don't know the exact number. You can find that for me, Mars. But I'm more so when I look at shooters too, I look at their technique, and he has such a great 2-motion type jump shot, and he can get that. Well. Yes, high release, and he can get that like off the bounce when he's coming off DHOs or just spotting up. Like he's just a great off-ball shooter. I just feel like, obviously, the main attraction from Gradey Dick is going to be his jump shot, and rightfully so, because I feel like he can turn out to be one of those premier snipers in the NBA that, even though he can be lacking in a lot of areas like defense, just because of him being such a great shooter, is going to earn him a lot of minutes on the court. Because when you have a guy like him, and you can shoot that well from three and the midi, it gets a little scary, and it's on high volume of threes, so it's not like shooting like 2-3 a game. He's taking a high volume amount of threes for the college game. So I feel like him on the Magic would have been nice too. Him on the Magic, him on the Cavs, like those are some teams he could have been really, really nice for. The Raptors, I don't get what the Raptors are doing.
Toronto needed shooting, but at the same time, you have so many like just wings that I don't know.
I don't even know what their plan is. That's the bigger question with Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, less about the draft. It's more about what they're doing going forward. We should probably be in like a later episode. We're not going to talk about the plan.
I was going to say that should be in the later episode.
But yeah, Gradey Dick as a prospect, yeah, I do think probably one of the best definitely one of the best shooters in the class, arguably the best. What impresses me is that he doesn't need to dip the ball to get his shot off. He can he can catch it and just go straight up, and that's something that shows like a great level of skill as a shooter. Great feel for the game, tremendous cutter, very good, not very good, but good athlete, solid, gets a like very good offensive rebounder as well, especially from the wing position. Another good connected passer, not going to be like a individual creator or someone who runs the offense, but someone who, if you close out to him, he can make the right read or he can collapse the defense and make the correct read. That's something that Toronto like, these pass, defend, shoot type of guys. Yeah. Now, defensively is where the biggest concerns are. As a man defender, he leaves a lot to be desired. He doesn't have the greatest feet. Like, he doesn't move his feet very well. Can't really contain. Okay, I'm not going to use those words for Gradey Dick. That's kind of crazy. But like, does get blown by quite a bit. But as a team defender, he understands rotations. He's smart. In the right defensive system with the right pieces around him, which I think Toronto have as of now, depending on what they do. But as of now, I do think they have the right pieces around him to maybe not make him seem like a liability defensively. And then with that jump shot, I do think with Toronto being one of the worst shooting teams in the league, you can't go much worse than what Gradey Dick provides as a shooter. So I will say one of the best shooters in the class. The reason I'm hesitant to say the best shooter is because the guy who went number 14
next to him, that's
is arguably the best shooter in the class. So let's talk a little bit about Jordan Hawkins out of UConn, national champion. So credit to him. A lot of people just give him the comp to Ray Allen, obviously the same college, tremendous shooter. Like, the comp is there.
I understand that because
I don't see it from like if you know what Ray Allen was in Milwaukee, Boston Ray Allen.
Yeah, we're talking about Boston Ray Allen.
It's possible. I see it.
Because whenever people think about Ray, we're thinking about Boston usually, which is kind of weird. Because
it's kind of sad. Yeah, I feel like people need to put some respect on the self creation Ray Allen had. But Boston Ray Allen, I see it with Jordan Hawkins, tremendous shooter. I don't think he shot as good of a percentage as Gradey Dick, but I do think he was on higher volume. I did see more.
His thing is though, I think he's better off movement, like coming off screens or just fine immediately. I feel like that's what he's better at Gradey Dick for, which could, sometimes some games you're flying off screens way faster, so it can sometimes affect your shooting. So
yeah. I will say I didn't expect him to go in the lottery. I thought Golden State were going to be looking at him. I thought he was going to go with like late teams. I thought that's where he was going to go with the Lakers. I thought that's where he was going to go. So seeing New Orleans pick him up in the lottery was kind of a surprise because his ability off the dribble isn't great. He's a good athlete. If he gets to the rim, he can finish. Like over the top in transition, he's pretty good. But I think his biggest appeal is his ability as a movement shooter off screens, just understanding like certain principles. Like if someone drives, you just drift to the corner. He understands when to lift to the
those
wing.
Principles, it seems so minuscule, but they matter, right? Like
those things are just very important, and I think he has them all down just to a very high level. And then with New Orleans, obviously with Zion, one of the biggest downhill threats, tremendous gravity downhill. Now you have a guy like Jordan Hawkins.
Now you got Jordan Hawkins. You got now Trey Murphy. Now it's looking.
I'm Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram
and Brandon Ingram
off spots as well. I see what they are doing with Jordan Hawkins. I do think it's a very good pick for them. I do think it was slightly too high, but at this point, what is trading down to 16? So Jordan Hawkins at 14, I think it does make sense. Vamp actually did say with pertaining to Jordan Hawkins, and I was going to get to this. Hot take, I think Jordan Hawkins will be a top 3 player from this class. He has the same feel for the game that I thought Levine had. Now, he's another one of those high floor prospects in this class, similar to a Taylor Hendricks, that I do think, like, at the bare minimum, you're going to have a great shooter off the bench. Like, that's the bare minimum you're going to get from him. Now, I do need to see the self-creation hit another level. I do need to see playmaking hit another level. And I do need to see him become a better defender for me to say top 3 player from this class. But he has a baseline foundation of a solid NBA career. I don't think we're going to be here 4 years from now saying, how is Jordan Hawkins not in the NBA? I think he's going to have a long career. 10 years from now, he's going to be someone who's commanding good money because of the fact that he's a great shooter. And I think that's what I expect from him. I don't see a top 3 player. I don't see the upside that Vamp sees. But as a baseline level, Jordan Hawkins, that movement shooting, just being, in my opinion, the best shooter in the class, but at worst, top 3, that's going to translate to the NBA level. And I think he's going to be a very valuable pick for New Orleans. So maybe not top 3, but very valuable pick for New Orleans. So there we go.
I agree. I'm happy because New Orleans, they were like 15th in the NBA in 3-point shooting, and they attempted the 29th most. So that's something you add there, right?
Yeah, that's something very valuable for them. But now that we're out the lottery, we're not gonna continue going in order. We're not gonna just go all the way down.
So we're gonna be just jumping to certain
players. So chat, just give me some list of prospects you'd like me to talk about. I will obviously prioritize super chats. If you send a super chat, I will definitely get to that prospect. Otherwise, I'll just try and read the chat, keep up with it, and then talk about prospects as they come. But super chats will obviously be prioritized. There is one here from Doctor or DR saying thoughts on the Nuggets draft. Now the Nuggets got Julian Strova, I believe is how you say his name. They got him in the first round. They got Jalen Pickett, and I believe they got one other player who I can't remember. I believe it was Hunter Tyson. They got out of Clemson, who's another shooter. I don't know how much he's really going to play, but I really like Julian Strova for them. I really like that. Julian Strova
guard.
Yeah, Julian Strova, another tremendous shooter, great pick for Denver. He's not going to command the ball, doesn't really need to do too much. Just someone who can come in, make threes, and very high volume, very efficient shooter. That's something that you can't really pass on. 6'7", tremendous length. So Julian Strova is a good pick for them. Jalen Pickett is a pick I didn't really understand. I think he's a good player. I think he had a good collegiate career. I just don't see how his game translates to Denver. Now, I don't know how much you've really watched him, but from what I've seen of him,
Yeah, I was gonna say Jalen Pickett I didn't watch enough of, so that's why I had to be quiet
from what I've seen, very very old school guards, Mark Jackson vibes.
How good, Mark Jackson?
Like,
how tall is he?
I believe he's 6'2", 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, okay.
Mark Jackson makes sense. I could be wrong, but loves to back down guards. Very strong, sturdy base. Plays in the mid range. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's not like tremendous, but good 3-point shooter. Very good passer, but the way he operates in the middle of the floor, heavy isolation, I just don't see how it works with Denver. Now, maybe they're trying to use him in the not Jamal Murray role, but in a 2-man game of Jokic, you can have them in the middle of the floor and Jalen Pickett can operate there. But I didn't really understand the pick. And he's going to be a much older rookie. I believe he's going to be like 23, 24. As a rookie. So I wasn't too high on that pick. And Hunter Tyson is just someone who can stretch the floor. Not a great defender. I don't know how much he's really going to play. I think he was just another second-round pick for them. But overall, I think they had a good draft. What you could expect, they moved in. They got a pick in the draft. They moved up, got Julian Strobel, who's a good pick. So I think overall, a solid draft for them. But nothing. I don't think I expect these rookies to come in and be tremendous straight away. Yeah, especially anyone other than
championship team.
Yeah. How much can you really contribute to a championship? A team that just won a championship as a rookie. So I don't expect too much from them, but I think they had a very solid draft. But super chat here from Seth Malone. He said, Mars, now that you're on a pod where you talk real hoops, there's no way you believe in the Ben Simmons comeback to you. This is a draft show. So before we talk about Ben Simmons, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets draft. They got Noah Clowney and Derrick Whitehead in the first round. Noah Clowney is someone who I know Dub was very high on. He went in Miami to get them.
Dub was high on Noah Clowney.
Yeah, Dub was high on Noah Clowney. I'm not as high as Dub on Noah Clowney.
Neither.
The offensive game to me is just so far away from being viable that I'm not too high.
I don't feel like that's something Miami needed either.
Yeah, right? Now defensively, as a rim protector, as someone who's versatile, moves his feet well at that size, I understand that. I still think he's a way away defensively as well. I still think he's pretty raw on that side of the ball, but the upside is there. But offensively, I don't see the route for him to be a good offensive player is either become a tremendous play finisher, which doesn't really work next to Nicholas Claxton, who's already a play finisher, or that outside shot comes along, which is something that I think he's way too far away from really doing. So I'm not too high on Noah Clowney. Derrick Whitehead, however, who was one of the highest tired prospects coming in, but then he got hurt. Tremendous shooter, good size for a wing. I believe he's 6'6", 6'7", can play 2 of the 3. Showed a lot more self-creation before Duke, before the injury. Now, if he can get back to that, Brooklyn got a steal. Now, at the bare minimum, I think they have another shooter, which is great, just floor spacing at 22. But the upside of Derrick Whitehead is similar to someone like a Cam Whitmore who fell to number 20. I think that's the level of steal that they could get. And then to Ben Simmons, I think it's possible. I'm not saying all-star, all-NBA caliber player, but I do think Ben Simmons will be a viable contributor for Brooklyn next season. I think he will play. I think he will be a very good defender for them. I think he can be a good play initiator. I think in transition, he'll still be good. I don't expect him to be able to shoot. I don't expect him to have scoring aggression.
As crazy, we still have to label those things still now, man.
But I do think Ben Simmons will be a valuable player and valuable contributor for Brooklyn next season. So there is that. But now that all the super chats are done until
we're gonna get to the big player, man. Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, there we go. Let's talk about Cam Whitmore. There we go. Houston obviously got him at 20, so I'm very happy.
How did that happen? What did they say why he went that low? I didn't.
The questions were apparently he has a cartilage issue, which I think he's got. I think he just got surgery. I believe. I could be wrong about that. So that was a part of the reason why he fell down draft boards, alongside the fact that apparently he interviewed very poorly with a lot of teams. and his workouts weren't great either. So a lot of teams just weren't very high on what he was doing from an interview standpoint and his workouts, that he fell from potentially a top 5 pick, because I had him going to Detroit at 5.
Same. I had him going to Detroit. So when I saw him kept falling, I was like,
I was like, there's no way he falls to us at 20. But then once 19 came, I was like, we got him.
You know what? I knew Houston was gonna be dope.
Yeah, I knew we weren't passing on him. Yeah, I knew we weren't gonna pass on him. But just to talk about Cam Whitmore, the player, instead of just why he fell, tremendous athlete, especially off 2 feet. Tremendous athlete, excellent getting downhill, finishes around the rim very
amazing burst.
Amazing burst. One of the best like NBA frames from the jump out there. One of the youngest players in the draft as well, but he's 6'6", like 220, 225. Defensive upside is there as well, especially as a point of attack defender. Now, off the ball, a lot to be desired. Very unaware, sometimes just gets caught sleeping. But on the ball, ability to move his feet, be strong, can even switch onto some bigs, front the post, very, very physical down there. Those type of things, very valuable. And then obviously also there's signs of an outside shooter. It's not great, but there's signs.
I'm gonna say if he pans out, if he gets a tighter handle, gets a more consistent jump shot.
Steal of
Man, I was gonna say Houston just got the steal of the draft, bro. The steal of the draft, man, because he might become one of the more dynamic players in the game because of everything you just illustrated and dense more. The shot making and defensive upside, his ability to attack closeouts is absolutely insane. Like his athleticism is off the charts. I don't know if you've ever seen the photo of the little pole that they always try to jump. He literally touches the top of the thing, which is insane. Like the potential for Cam Whitmore is absolutely insane. I had him as a top 5 pick. I think almost every scout, like if you scoured the internet,
no one had him lower than 9.
9. I was gonna say he was 1,000% a top 10 projected pick. I've never seen that. Like
Utah at 9 is, I believe, like where like the lowest I think anyone had him. So him falling beyond that was amazing to me. Then him falling out the lottery was even crazier.
It's like, that's insane.
So, I mean, I'm very happy, obviously.
Of course you will be. You will be. Because I remember I was talking to one of my Houston friends, and it was being projected that y'all might have even picked him at 4. So
yeah, I know there was rumors we were contemplating that. So him falling.
And my friend hated that. And he was like, and then he still ended up with him at 20. And it was like, well, no way y'all still get 2 of the guys you wanted.
Yeah, we got we got, in my opinion, 2 top 5 prospects in the
draft.
But for damn near everyone, we got 2 top 10 prospects at 4 and 20. So very, very happy about that. But yeah, overall, I think Houston did win the draft because of that. But if the questions about his attitude and his interviews or whatever are true, and maybe the cartilage issue in his knee is really severe, maybe it will make sense. But as of now, I think Houston are very happy with the draft. Brian Holiday with a super chat asked for our favorite Mary J song. So now we're talking about music. Do you have a favorite Mary J Blige song?
I unfortunately do not. Do you?
I guess Family Affair.
Family Affair.
There you go. But back to the hoop talk. Greatest chimed in. Appreciate you, Greatest. He said Mars and Coach DreamHoopz. Talk about Jacob Toppin. If there's anyone who knows his flaws, it's you guys. Lol, just showing love. Shout out to the chat, Billy Bob, and every New York Knicks fan. Jacob Toppin I believe he signed a 2-way with the Knicks. He's obviously Obi Toppin's brother. I will say, I know he was at Kentucky. I don't know too much about him as a player at all.
It's a lot of the same things with Obi Toppin. Like he's a 6'9" guy who's springy, can get the ball off, just has that ridiculous, like, just what's the word I want to say? I used it before, catch radius around the rim, can hit the 3 ball. He does need to improve his free throw shooting. Was 64%. I feel like that's something he should improve in. Yeah, he should improve in. But I do believe I didn't watch enough film of him, so I can't go more in depth than what I just gave you, unfortunately. But for the New York Knicks, I mean, that's nice. I mean, number one, it's a nice story. And if it turns out to be a good product on the court, that's even better because, I mean, Obi Toppin, eventually you're going to have to pay him too. So the Knicks are in a peculiar situation, man. They are.
Yeah. A super chat here from Dropping Dimes. I'm sick of people saying that Vogel will turn Ayton into a defensive stud. Roy Hibbert and Anthony Davis were studs before Vogel coached them. Ayton is not that. So, yeah, we can talk a little bit about the Phoenix Suns. What do you think of Frank Vogel coaching them? Do you think DeAndre Ayton will become a defensive stud? Just a little bit about the coaching there and just DeAndre Ayton.
Of course, I don't think Frank Vogel's going to mess up their offense like some people might allude to. I just feel like those three offensive talents that you have in Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, that's enough. I feel like your offense is going to be top 5 in the NBA, bare minimum, if those guys are healthy. Defensively, I don't think Frank Vogel's saving you. I feel like a lot of people need to understand, like even in that 21 season when LeBron and AD were out for large portions of the season, they still had Alex Caruso. They still had KCP, and they also still had Marc Gasol, who was still decently defensively at the time. So he still had defensive talent on his roster. Now, in comparison to the Suns at this point, who only have 4 guaranteed players at this point, we don't know what defensive pieces they could add in the offseason, because right now, pretty much they can only add minimum type guys to the roster. So there's not a lot of pieces they can add that could help them defensively. And I don't think he's going to magically make Aiden this defensive juggernaut, because a lot of it just has to do with mentally the player, just their mentality and just their overall skill sets. Like I can't just think that because Frank Vogel has coached some of the best defenses in the NBA that, let me go just plug him, let's just say a random example. I'm going to just go plug him in Houston and they become a defensive juggernaut roster. I don't think so. I don't think Frank Vogel is a Mike D'Antoni on offense. That's a different player. Okay, that's a different type of coach, because for some reason, Mike D'Antoni can – I don't know what it is. If he gets just one offensive player that has a pretty good skill set, he's going to maximize it to the best. I don't think Frank Vogel is that for defense. I do not.
Yeah, I think Dream pretty much covered it. Super chat from Dom here said Warriors picks. I feel like people are sleeping on what Podziemski will do. He's a cheaper Dante DiVincenzo. And the second rounder, Trace Jackson Davis, who doesn't know, will likely steal minutes from Jonathan Kuminga if he doesn't perform. Now, I will say, as someone who just likes Santa Clara products, Jalen Williams, Steve Nash, everyone knows I'm the biggest Steve Nash fan in the world.
You are.
And now Brandon Podziemski. I do think he's a very good player, very great, very, very good shooter. Lefty as well, which is always just very interesting to see. But lefty. Shoots well off the catch, off the move, off pick and rolls, just very comfortable shooter.
To simplify, he's a legit dribble pass shoot type of guard, a 6'5" guy.
The defense leaves a lot to be desired. Not great when it comes to his lateral movement. Doesn't really contain penetration very well. But offensively, just very, very respectfully, he's probably the antithesis of Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole was very fast paced, very erratic. Decision making was a bit all over the place. Brandon Podziemski is someone who plays at his own pace, understands tempo, operates out the pick and roll very well, can play without the basketball at a very high level with his shooting and his feel for the game. I think he fits very well with Golden State. And Trace Jackson Davis is someone who I'm surprised fell this low, to be honest, because very good rim finisher, very good rebounder, very comfortable around the basket. Okay shooting touch. I believe he's like a 70% free throw shooter. I'm not saying he's going to shoot threes. He's never going to be a 3-point shooter, but just for someone like that, I believe the 57th pick, that's tremendous value. I don't know how much he's going to play. I know he got a guaranteed deal with Golden State, so that is good for them. They did trade Patrick Baldwin Jr. basically for him. And maybe he can come in as a 4-year college guy and be a contributor straight away. So Trace Jackson Davis, very good pick for them. I do think Golden State had a very good draft, in my opinion. But now that we've basically spoke about all the prospects you guys have asked for, now there's about still 200 people in here. Like the video. But I will say I'm looking into doing a new show on this channel. Just
shout out!
A show in which you guys can come up, kind of like if you watch Dub's channel, Dub's World, kind of like that. Everyone can come up, talk basketball. It's not just me and Dream. It will likely be once a week. The only reason I haven't done it is because I don't make thumbnails. So until I can figure that out, probably still in the works. But I am trying to have a show where you guys can come up. We can actually talk real basketball without the narratives. Because I know a lot of you guys who watch the show in the chat do understand the game. I'd like you guys to come up, talk.
They asked, "Are you going to be trolling?" He said, "He's not."
No, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be trolling. It's going to be real hoop talk on my channel. where everyone comes up, talks basketball. We talk about the real game, no narratives, not about where does this guy rank all time with a ring, none of that. I want you guys to just come up, talk basketball about any topic. It's not going to be strictly about any particular topic. It's basically going to be like open gym, but on this channel with real basketball content. So be on the lookout for that. Next week's show will be next weekend. I'll probably have more information about the new show then. Just stay tuned. Just stay around, pay attention. But Dream, do you have any final words before we get up out of here?
Who does your picks? Dream say this. Hey man. No, that was not actually a stray on me. It was not a stray on me, Greg.
Hey, maybe it was a stray, who knows?
Final words. I actually don't have final words. I gotta come up with something for this show. But what I will say is, if you enjoyed this show, just like and subscribe. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, we did recently hit 4K subscribers, so I appreciate everyone who subscribed. Man. It probably comes from Low coming on the show. But yeah, I am gonna try get some more guests, probably from Players Choice. I am trying to get Chilltown on here. I'm gonna talk to Chilltown. I want to get Chilltown up here.
That'd be nice. Getting Chill.
So yes, stay tuned. We got a lot of good things coming up. But thank you again, Dream, for being here every week. Of course, always on time, apart from the 1 week he wasn't. Next week, episode 10, special.